The world is holding its breath, eyes fixed on a region that has become the epicenter of global anxiety. All attention is on the Caribbean, where the tranquil blue waters now mask a storm of escalating tensions. News alerts flash across screens worldwide: U.S. warship sinks Venezuelan vessel. The headlines are stark, the implications profound. In response, the Pentagon chief makes a high-profile visit to Puerto Rico, underscoring the gravity of the Venezuela crisis, and signaling that this is no routine diplomatic mission. This is no ordinary diplomatic spat. Military hardware is in play, and the risk of conflict is real. Troops mobilize, equipment is readied, and the world watches as the machinery of war inches closer to action. For months, the relationship between the U.S. and Venezuela has been deteriorating, marked by harsh rhetoric and failed negotiations. But now, actions speak louder than words, and the world is witnessing a dangerous escalation. Advanced military assets, fighter jets, warships, and surveillance drones are being deployed to strategic positions, their presence a clear message to all parties involved. High-level officials are on the ground, overseeing operations, holding briefings, and making decisions that could shape the fate of nations. The international community holds its breath, uncertain if this is merely a show of force or the prelude to a much larger conflict. Allies and adversaries alike are watching, calculating their next moves. The drama unfolds not just on the seas, but in the halls of power in Washington and Caracas, where leaders weigh their options, and the stakes could not be higher. On the high seas, warships maneuver in tense formations, their crews on high alert, every move scrutinized by satellites and intelligence agencies. Puerto Rico, once a quiet outpost, now finds itself at the center of this unfolding crisis, its strategic importance thrust into the global spotlight. Warships gather off Puerto Rico's coast, their silhouettes a stark reminder of the region's vulnerability and the potential for escalation. On the island, citizens react with a mix of fear and resolve as military convoys roll through streets and local news covers every development, amplifying the sense of uncertainty. Every new headline adds to the unease. Tweets, official statements, and breaking news updates flood social media, each one dissected for clues about what might happen next. Ship movements are tracked in real time, analysts pore over satellite images, and military planners work around the clock, piecing together a dangerous puzzle where one wrong move could trigger disaster. Brinkmanship is now the dominant narrative, a high-stakes game where a single miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences for the entire region. The world seeks clarity, but all it sees is military readiness, soldiers preparing for deployment, and a hardening of resolve on all sides. The headlines scream, echoing the anxiety felt by millions. Around the globe, people watch and wait, glued to their screens, reacting in real time to every twist and turn of this unfolding crisis, wondering what the next move will be. The region stands on edge, the stakes higher than ever before. Every decision, every maneuver, could tip the balance between peace and war. The next chapter remains unwritten, shrouded in uncertainty. But one thing is clear, the tension is undeniable, and the world is watching, waiting for history to unfold. In a move that captured international attention, the U.S. Secretary of Defense made a bold and highly publicized visit, landing dramatically on a state-of-the-art warship stationed just off the coast of Puerto Rico, a location chosen for its strategic significance. The message was unmistakable. America is not only present in the region but is also vigilant, watchful, and fully prepared to act at a moment's notice. This operation was far more than a routine patrol. It was a calculated demonstration of military strength designed to reassure allies and remind adversaries of U.S. resolve. During the visit, the Secretary took time to meet with sailors, observe their daily routines, and witness the mission's challenges firsthand, providing a much-needed boost to morale and reinforcing the importance of their service. Officially, the mission was focused on counter-narcotics, disrupting the flow of illegal drugs that threaten both the U.S. and its neighbors. Yet the geopolitical overtones were impossible to ignore, as the presence of such high-level leadership sent a clear signal to the world. The Secretary's visit embodied the Pentagon's unwavering commitment to the region, signaling that Washington's attention was firmly fixed on Caribbean affairs and the security of its partners. In his address, he spoke passionately about the ongoing fight against drug trafficking, the need for regional cooperation, and the shared responsibility of ensuring peace and stability throughout the Western Hemisphere. Beneath the official statements, the subtext was clear. Instability emanating from Venezuela, or any other source, would not be tolerated by the United States or its allies. Standing resolutely on the deck of a warship near Venezuela, the Secretary effectively drew a line in the Caribbean, making it clear that any threat to regional stability would be met with a strong response. The visit also underscored Puerto Rico's vital strategic importance, both as a forward operating base and as a symbol of American resolve in the region, making the trip a dramatic and unmistakable statement of intent. With this visit, the stakes in the Caribbean had been unmistakably raised, and the world was put on notice. The United States was fully engaged, ready, and determined to defend its interests and support its allies in this critical region. Tensions in the Caribbean reached a boiling point when a U.S. warship, conducting a high-stakes counter-narcotics patrol, found itself face-to-face with the Venezuelan naval vessel known as the Resolute. The U.S. Navy had been intensifying its presence in these waters, determined to crack down on the flow of illegal drugs, and this encounter would soon become a flashpoint in the ongoing struggle against international trafficking. According to U.S. officials, the situation escalated rapidly. They claimed the Venezuelan boat aggressively rammed the American warship, leading to a violent collision. In the aftermath, the Resolute was left severely damaged and ultimately sank beneath the waves. The incident was dramatic, with both sides trading accusations and the wreckage serving as a stark reminder of the risks involved in these operations. The Pentagon wasted no time in framing the event as a decisive strike against the powerful drug cartels operating in the region. Officials alleged that the Resolute was not just a military vessel, but was actively collaborating with criminal organizations, providing protection and safe passage for massive shipments of narcotics bound for North America and beyond. Intelligence reports, some of them classified, suggested that elements within the Venezuelan government and military were deeply complicit in the narco-trafficking trade. These findings painted a picture of corruption at the highest levels, fueling suspicions and justifying further U.S. intervention in the region. The U.S. government argued that their actions were not only justified, but necessary to disrupt a major trafficking corridor. The Caribbean has long been a critical route for smugglers, and American officials insisted that decisive action was needed to stem the tide of drugs flowing northward. In Caracas, however, the response was swift and furious. Venezuelan leaders condemned the incident, labeling it an act of piracy and unprovoked aggression. They accused the U.S. of violating international law and using the war on drugs as a pretext for military intervention. For Washington, though, the confrontation was a clear demonstration of American resolve and willingness to act. The clash sent a powerful message. U.S. forces were prepared to engage directly, even with foreign military vessels, if they were suspected of aiding the drug trade. The rules of engagement had shifted, and the risks for those involved in trafficking had never been higher. From now on, any vessel operating in these waters and suspected of ties to narcotics smuggling would be considered a legitimate target. The U.S. made it clear that its patrols would be relentless, and that no ship was above suspicion. With this single incident, the stakes in the Caribbean had just escalated dramatically. The region was now on high alert, as both sides braced for further confrontations in the ongoing war against narco-trafficking. Puerto Rico, on the front lines, made its stance clear. The governor publicly thanked the U.S. President and Secretary of Defense for decisive action. She framed the military buildup as essential for security and stability, especially against drug trafficking. By welcoming the warships, Puerto Rico aligned itself with Washington. The governor called the U.S. presence a shield for the island and the region. Her support legitimized the operation and countered accusations of U.S. aggression. Puerto Rico's cooperation was critical for sustaining a long-term presence. The governor's backing was a political win for the White House. Puerto Rico stood united with the U.S. The message to allies and adversaries was unmistakable. Caracas responded with fury and defiance. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez rejected the U.S. justification, calling it a flimsy pretext for aggression. She accused the U.S. of imperialism, not crime fighting. Rodriguez argued that if the U.S. truly wanted to stop drugs, its warships would be in the Pacific, not the Caribbean. She claimed the real drug routes bypass Venezuela entirely. Her message: the U.S. mission is a strategic sham, a military maneuver disguised as law enforcement. The world, she insisted, should see through American hypocrisy. Vice President Rodriguez mocked the use of warships for fighting crime. Who fights drug trafficking with destroyers, she asked, calling it absurd. She argued that modern technology allows for precise tracking of vessels, no need for a naval fleet. The US, she said, could use intelligence, not intimidation. The warships, in her view, were about power, not policing. She reframed the debate. If the job is law enforcement, use the right tools. An armada, she concluded, signals war, not crime fighting. Her counter-narrative resonated with nations wary of US military power. The message, the US presence is about dominance, not drugs. The world was urged to question American motives. Venezuela's military leadership sent its own message. Defense Chief Vladimir Padrino Lopez addressed the nation, declaring the armed forces on high alert. He emphasized vigilance, tracking every US movement. "We are not afraid," he stated, projecting strength and resolve. His words aimed to boost morale and assure the public of Venezuela's readiness. The posture was defensive, not provocative, protecting sovereignty under international law. Padrino Lopez avoided threats, careful not to give the US a pretext for action. The military and political leadership stood united. The message Venezuela would not back down, but sought to avoid war. The standoff was set to be long and tense. The US answered Venezuela's defiance with more firepower. The Pentagon sent additional warships and littoral combat ships to the Caribbean. The fleet's firepower and operational capacity surged. The US Air Force deployed F-35 stealth fighters to Puerto Rico. These jets, designed for combat, marked a major escalation. The buildup signaled a shift from counter-narcotics to potential conflict. The US now dominated sea and sky, raising the stakes. The world wondered, would America use its overwhelming power? The region braced for what might come next. As military assets amassed, leaders' rhetoric sharpened. President Trump warned Venezuela not to use its Russian-made jets to interfere. Any aggression would be met with force. The US claimed air superiority and was ready to enforce it. This was brinkmanship at the highest level. In response, President Maduro deployed more troops and air defenses to the coast. He framed it as defending sovereignty against imminent threat. Both presidents drew their lines in the sand. Troops moved, fleets positioned, and the world watched. The Caribbean became the world's most dangerous flashpoint. The crisis had reached its peak. The world waited, hoping the brink would not become a battlefield.